Turns out Connor Zilisch is just really good. We'll recap the NASCAR Xfinity Series race from COTA, what happened to Carson Hocevar early on in that race, and we have a number of drivers beefing after a rowdy day in Austin. Welcome back to Break Hard. I'm Matt. They say everything's bigger in Texas, unless you're NASCAR racing on a road course, in which case it's smaller than what you used to have here, which I actually think was 100% the right call. So the NASCAR Xfinity and Cup Series are using the national course at Circuit of the Americas. Well, technically a version of the national course. They're no longer running the full course. They're running the short course, cut out basically turn 7 through 11 there. And honestly, it was probably the right move because what we saw on Saturday in Xfinity Series was actually a really fun, a really entertaining race in which Connor Zilisch picked up his second NASCAR Xfinity Series career victory in only 7 starts. He's locked himself into the playoffs. He will contend for a championship this year, which we knew was going to happen, but locking yourself in after only 3 races as a rookie, that's a really good thing for him. But this race started off with Connor Zilisch not blowing the first corner. That's really good. He and Ross Chastain had a pretty good little battle there early on. But one of the weirder things we've seen happen this year is Carson Hocevar, going into that new turn 6A, appeared to just stuff it into the tire barriers himself and then just get out with minimal damage to that car. In reality, he got jebbed. Jeb Burton, John Edward Burton, that's how you get the jeb there, hit him from behind, shoved him off into the wall. Carson goes into the tire barriers, but doesn't have a ton of damage. He's not stuck there. He puts the window net down and he climbs out of the car, and everybody's like, all right, what happened here? And it turns out, well, he couldn't hear the team the entire time. So he's trying to radio the team. He can't hear them. They can't hear him, and he couldn't cycle. He said he tried to cycle the car multiple times, cycle it, try to get it to fire up, and it just never happened. So he decided to just go ahead and drop the window net and get out of the car. He said because, SS Greenlight is a small team, that 14 car that he was driving, and they don't have, all the resources, and they don't want to destroy equipment and things like that. So he just elected to get out of the car at that point. Now, Hocevar was in the car this weekend for Garrett Smithley, who didn't want to run the road courses because I guess he's just not very good at it. I actually didn't look at his average finish for him. So they went ahead and put Hocevar in the car and then just kind of got jebbed there, and that was the end of that. So kind of a weird sequence considering that they retired the car when it really didn't have any damage, and if he probably could have got it fired, put it in reverse, he could have continued on. But their main thing was just making it into the race because there were some cars that were going to go home this weekend, like the Alpha Prime cars. 2 of their 3 cars went home, and they did not want to be part of that group. So Hocevar did his job, got him into the field, and then just had one of the weirder instances where he just got out of the car. The CW just would not let him go. They just kept asking him questions, and they asked him the same question again. He kind of gave the same answer, just longer winded. And at one point I was like, okay, we are not writing a research paper on this. Just shut up and get off the screen. Let us watch what's actually happening in the race. Back to the race now. Connor Zilisch, like I said, kind of just asserted himself. He took the lead, and then he's got about a 4-second lead, comes to pit road with, right before the stage end, before pit road closes. And then as he's about to hit the pit entrance line, caution comes out. Baltazar is stopped on the racetrack. That is a actual race car driver from Argentina, not a Ghostbusters character or anything like that. He's stopped on the racetrack, and Zilisch thought he had made it to pit road. Spoiler alert, he did not. He didn't make it to pit road at all. As you can see in the photo here, he was short of it. So they still serviced the car because they thought they had made it. Wrong. So now they got to start at the back and drive through the field. And here's a common theme so far with Connor Zilisch on road courses in one of NASCAR's 3 series. If in the truck series, he's on pole, he's going to blow the first corner and then have to drive back through the field. I believe he passed 58 trucks in that truck series race last year at COTA. Okay. The Xfinity Series race at Watkins Glen that he won last year in his first ever NASCAR Xfinity Series start. He decides to just drive straight through the bus stop with Ty Gibbs and others and got penalized for that. Have to pass a lot more cars. And now on Saturday at Circuit of the Americas, he pits on a closed pit road, and guess what? He has to start the back and pass a whole bunch of cars. And he does just that. He drives up through the field, puts on a pretty good show there, keeps the car clean the entire time. Unlike Christian Eckes, who was just absolutely beating and banging that number 16 car around and still managed to get a top 5 out of it for him. So tip of the cap to Christian Eckes there. He makes it all the way back up through the field with a pretty clean race car. And then towards this latter half of this race, he's passing Corey Heim in the stadium section, and he dives him, not like a Chris Wright type of dive, because it was Chris Wright, he would have driven all the way through him, but they bang wheels. Didn't pop up in the air like Ty Gibbs, but it gets substantial damage to the right front of that number 88 car. Meanwhile, Corey Heim goes off and spins, and we'll have to talk about the beef on that in a second, because he wasn't happy and he shouldn't have been happy, because Zilisch just got too greedy there, too aggressive. He could have waited and been able to pass him a lot cleaner, which kind of is a theme of the day, because Zilisch afterwards is like, I gotta send like 3 or 4 texts out to drivers because I raced them poorly. Is probably the best word for that. So you got that happening, and then Zilisch, manages to continue on, but you're like, man, that right front's, it's got a big tire rub. He's driving down the straightaway, and it's just absolutely billowing smoke like he's in an air show, and he manages to not blow a tire, which is actually really impressive, because we saw the 7 car of Justin Allgaier kind of get similar damage, and he decided to pit to avoid it. But in the closing laps of this race, you have Austin Hill out front, because you'll never believe this, guys. Connor Zilisch blew turn 1 again on a restart and pushed everybody wide, and Austin Hill was able to capitalize on that, take the lead. But he's able to, get back around Austin Hill. Austin Hill has a just driver error getting down into turn 12. Technically, I would classify it probably as about turn 8, but regardless, the corner at the end of what is the long backstretch for the full course, he just kind of cooked it in there, missed the apex and everything like that. That allowed Carson Kvapil to get by. That allowed Connor Zilisch to get by. Then Carson Kvapil and Connor Zilisch put on an absolute show. The Cars Tour late model champion, not a known road racer at all, had the fastest lap of the race. Shout out to him. 3 fastest laps of the race belong to Carson Kvapil, not Connor Zilisch. So maybe Carson Kvapil is the actual number 1 talent in the Chevy pipeline right now. He's definitely probably number 2. That kid is supremely talented, just like Connor Zilisch is. But he keeps locking up the right front, that being Carson Kvapil. Eventually, finally, Connor Zilisch gets around him and doesn't really drive away from him. Carson's able to pace him and just stay right there on his bumper. But then all those times locking up the right front, Carson Kvapil ends up getting a flat right front tire. Not an ideal day for him, because he should have had a 2nd place finish, and instead he gets credited with like a 23rd place finish. I had to double check over there. So not ideal there. Zilisch goes on to win the race, does a big burnout, and proceeds to bump it into the wall. We'll get to that in a second here. But you end up having Connor Zilisch, P1. William Byron comes home 2nd. The Hendrick Motorsports Xfinity program could not go back-to-back in this race. Sam Mayer in 3rd. Obviously, he is a known road racer. He won multiple times with Junior Motorsports, including the Roval last year with that team. Now he's over at Haas Factory Team, comes home 3rd. Austin Hill in 4th. Christian Eck is in 5th. And like I said, Christian Eck's car, I don't know if they had a straight panel on it at the end of this race, but still managed to get a 5th place out of it. Jesse Love in 6th. Taylor Gray 7th. Ross Chastain in 8th. William Sawalich 9th. And Blaine Perkins driving for Jordan Anderson Racing, rounding out your top 10. Great run for those guys over there. Overall, this was a really fun race. There was really good passing throughout. I think... So there in turn 13, NASCAR has designated like a pull-off area. If you cut one of the S's, when you get to turn 13, you pull off, stop, and then you can continue on. It kind of looks like a Joker lap in a sense, if you're familiar with like Rallycross or whatever other series potentially use it. The only person I ever saw use that on Saturday, at least that I can remember, was Brandon Jones, and that feels like it checks out. But we had a number of different drivers run into each other. It's road course racing. I will say the COTA short circuit feels a lot like short track racing on a road course. There's a lot of beating and banging. There's a lot of people unhappy with each other after this race. But overall, this was a pretty solid NASCAR Xfinity Series race on a road course. It's probably in the 80s if I was going to rate it. It might be a low 80s, but it was definitely there. You had the joy of watching Connor Zilisch try to drive back through the field, and then obviously the incidents that he caused there. You had varying strategies, and then all of it just kind of, at the end, because of stages, everybody was basically on the same thing at the end. But hey, you had Harrison Burton winning stage number 1. Nobody had that on their bingo card. Daniel Dye, P2 in stage number 1, picked up 9 points on the day as well. So good run for those guys, or at least capitalizing on it when they could. Overall, like I said, I like this race a lot. And I was just really happy that we didn't have the discussion around cutting the course, which I thought we were going to have going into this race. NASCAR obviously had these big, on Friday morning when the team showed up there, they had these big blocks set up on the inside of the S's. not necessarily a NASCAR decision. I think it was more on the SMI side of things. Those were removed before practice because they were a massive safety hazard. I think we all agree that we need to do something about the track limit issue, but that's not the answer at all. And I've seen a lot of people mention that, oh, we should have we should just put a barrier around, jersey barriers, or put a guardrail around the inside of the S's. It's just not going to work, because at some point you are going to have the end piece that is very much visible, very much hittable by the cars coming at it. So think about this. You're going into the S's, this direction right here. Here's your jersey barrier, so you can't cut the inside of the corner. This is an exposed edge right here. That is an exposed face that you can just absolutely run into. Look like Mark Martin that time he spun out at Michigan onto pit road and then just absolutely T-boned himself onto the pit road wall there. We don't want that. So yeah, I understand people are like, oh, you got to find a solution to it. There's not the best solution to this other than being like, hey, don't do it or else we're going to penalize you. So thankfully we didn't have to deal with that. Thankfully on the last lap, we didn't have an SVG incident like we did last year in the Xfinity Series race, which took him from like second all the way back into the low 20s, I think. Which is just a brutal penalty. So happy that that wasn't part of the discussion. Now, on the other side of things, let's talk about the conspiracy theorists out here, because I know there's going to be some people that are like, hey, after this race, Connor Zilisch rolled up and he really hit that splitter into the wall, into the pit road wall. So if you missed it, he does his burnout, and then he rolls up and wants to do a burnout by putting the nose of the car against the wall, burning it down right there in front of his team. We've seen it happen before, but when he rolls up and he like hits it. Not enough to like, buckle the, front end or anything like that, but it certainly got a sect of the NASCAR fan base, the conspiracy people, the people that are the ones that hang out on our conspiracy, probably, the subreddit, that were like, hey, this is rigged, y'all. He did that so that he could pass post-race inspection. He did that so he could crack the splitter so they couldn't tech it afterwards. This is what Landon Castle was talking about after Parker got disqualified. The best way to make sure you don't get disqualified on tech is to go ahead and wreck your race car. It's just what William Byron did at the Daytona 500. It's not a conspiracy. I know everybody wants to think it is. I know everybody wants to have this, talking point, but it was honestly, I think just a mistake, a depth perception mistake, because he does his burnout, cockpit's full of smoke, and then just rolls up and hits it. Like, I think that was just an error in judgment right there. Zilisch, though, has a great burnout, gets out of the car, hits him with the Steph Curry good night. Then he said it wasn't actually that at all. He said he just likes to take naps. So that's why he went and did it there, which he and Jesse Love take pictures of each other taking naps all the time. I just don't know how you're that tired at 18, but hey, conserve your energy, go out there and be a really good race car driver. So Connor Zilisch wins, no conspiracy, although I think some people probably will think that there is. And then we have a number of drivers beefing after this race, not happy with each other at all, including one that happened on Saturday night that didn't initially happen after the race. So after the race, Corey Heim gets out and he tweets the emoji, the sunglasses emoji, with a thumbs up. So he's definitely not happy at Connor Zilisch for spinning him out. And I would imagine that there is some sort of retaliation probably coming in the future. We didn't get a back and forth here, but that's definitely a guy that Connor Zilisch is going to have to say, hey man, I messed up. I'm sorry about that. Please don't ruin my championship hopes when we get to the playoffs. On the other side of things, we also had former RCR driver Sheldon Creed battling with current RCR driver Jesse Love, and you guys are never going to believe this. The RCR people, they still don't like Sheldon Creed at all. There is no love lost there whatsoever. Sheldon Creed doesn't like RCR. RCR doesn't like Sheldon Creed, and that is a tale as old as time. It's like the Hatfield and the McCoys at this point. They're just never going to get along. I was going to put a Romeo and Juliet reference in there, and then I realized I don't know what the reference is. So we're moving on from that before my brain gets stuck on it and I have to look it up. Sheldon Creed, meanwhile, though, after the race, tweets out, play stupid games, win stupid prizes, because the CW posted a video of the 2 and the 00 banging fenders during the race. And, eventually it ended up with one of them going off track and the other one pushing the other one off track. To which, after the race, Jesse Love replied and said, scoreboard, bud, which, yeah, he finished 6th in the race and Sheldon Creed finished back in 12th. So if you're going to talk trash, make sure that you have the better finish in this, or a race win in the NASCAR Xfinity Series. I love Sheldon Creed. I think Sheldon Creed is a great driver in the sport, a guy that should have won multiple races at this point. But man, it sucks when you kind of just get shut down by another guy being like, scoreboard, like it's a high school basketball game and you're down by 15 and celebrating. But hey, I don't know if anything's going to come out of that. Sheldon Creed is not typically the guy I think is going to retaliate, and Jesse Love I don't think is either. But hey, there is history there between the two teams. Well, rather Sheldon and that team. And the people of Welcome, North Carolina are not welcoming of Sheldon Creed. And then to cap off Saturday night, we got the best one yet. Chris Wright, who is a heat-seeking missile out on the track at times. We saw him at Daytona. He's keeping everybody at our Motorsports Fab Shop gainfully employed. He got into another incident on Saturday. I'm just as surprised as you are. I know, it's a shocker. And he collected Josh Bilicki again for the third race in a row. The 91 and the 5 have been involved in an incident that was originated by the 5. And Josh Bilicki wasn't having any part of Chris Wright going into this. Josh Bilicki posted on Twitter, and he's like, really fast car, not much to show for it. Started at the rear of the field and then talked about how the 5 car took him out, to which Chris Wright responded and said, got loose outside of you and you finished me off. First off, chill. Yo, this is not Skinamax late at night. Don't say finish me off like that. That's weird. And this is what Josh Bilicki had to say. He said, dude, it's embarrassing that you don't even know what happened. I was behind you and you were inside of the 35 car, parentheses. He was passing you on the outside, in parentheses, and you stepped on your dick again and spun all on your own without me touching you. I had nowhere to go and you hit me as you spun around. I tried to give you the benefit of the doubt at Daytona, but it's honestly getting out of hand. Maybe you should go back to being a gentleman driver in IMSA where you can race doctors and dentists in LMP3. I mean, god damn, Josh Bilicki just came for the kill shot right there, and he absolutely should. Chris Wright has been a massive liability, in my opinion, on the racetrack this year, and it's taking cars out of races that have no business being taken out of races by this guy. He's just doesn't have the talent level, in my opinion, to be in the NASCAR Xfinity Series. And like Josh said, maybe go back down to LMP3 and race in IMSA. I mean, heck, it's in Chris Wright's bio that he was a IMSA champion in, 2018 or 2017, which I can only imagine is just because he ran all the races, but I digress on that one. I do love to see a driver clap back like that, though. So, hey, support Josh Bilicki this upcoming weekend in Phoenix, because hopefully it's not 4 for 4, because that would be unprecedented to go 4 for 4 like that. What is he, the Lewis Hamilton of crashing race cars at this point? I hope that doesn't happen for Josh Bilicki, but it's always cool to see them clap back like that. So let me know in the comments what you thought about Zilisch winning the Xfinity Series race, him bumping into the wall, Carson Hocevar getting out of that car after nudging into the tire barrier, and then the drivers beefing after the race on social media. Like and subscribe to the channel. Follow me on TikTok at BreakHard, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at BreakHardBlog.